Good morning. Wonderful to be with you. And let me say, it is so important, this work that is being organized here, to make sure that all of our communities have access to support, have access to vaccination, have access to information, and have access to healthcare. And that includes particularly our transgender community that has so often not been included in a whole variety of community health efforts. And so now, as communities continue to deal with COVID and its impacts, as well as the impacts of an overtaxed healthcare system, and layered on top of long-standing pre-existing inequities in access to healthcare, it is more important than ever that we make sure that resources are made available to all of our communities, including those who have often been left out. I do feel it's important in my comments to share also that COVID is not over, and that one of, I believe, our moral and interpersonal responsibilities is to continue to protect our community. And I strongly encourage that people should wear a mask whenever you're indoors with people outside your household, and particularly a N95 or KN95 mask that is more protective. That we need to continue to protect ourselves and each other, and that is part of building a healthier community. We also want to make sure that vaccines are readily available and that vaccination is provided in a way that is welcoming to all of our communities, including the LGBT community, our communities of color, our Black, Indigenous, and people of color communities, and our transgender communities, and to recognize the extensive history of healthcare inequities and healthcare disparities and healthcare mistreatment that many in our communities have suffered, and that then can make people less able to access care related to the pandemic, even if the mistreatment people experienced wasn't about COVID, that there has been a long history of difficulty accessing healthcare, mistreatment by healthcare personnel. And so that's part of why I support this effort to make sure that we are having culturally competent, relevant, supportive outreach and information to all of our communities, so that people can get not only vaccinated, but get welcoming and supportive information, and that should carry through to all of healthcare and to all of life. So thank you so much to everyone who has supported this effort, who will be supporting this effort, who helped fund it, and to all of the people involved in this outreach. Thank you for your work, and may we continue to take action to build healthier communities. Thank you.
So like Rebecca said, it's vaccination is a way we protect ourselves, and also the way we protect the people around us, our loved ones, especially our most vulnerable loved ones who have chronic conditions or they're seniors and they're most at risk for getting really sick from COVID. So vaccination is how we protect ourselves and we protect our community. We have a lot of ways that you can get vaccinated here in Alameda County. And you can go to any pharmacy. They all of the bigger pharmacies have the COVID vaccine, but sometimes they require an appointment or they run out. So it can be helpful to schedule an appointment in advance. And to do that, you can go to myturn.ca.gov, or through the county website. We have some specific county-specific resources. If you go to covid-19.acgov.org/vaccines, and you can also just Google it by looking up Alameda County COVID vaccines. And what you get when you go to those sites, to that site, is you see a few different, you can schedule an appointment, or you can see a calendar of every single day there's COVID vaccines being offered here in Alameda County, and you can just look at the calendar and say, tomorrow I have time, and see where the closest one is, and go get yourself there. So if you're, and if the websites are not for you and you want to call, there's a phone number listed at the bottom of the screen here. So that's 800-232-0233, and someone will help navigate you to get your COVID vaccine. So we're here for you to help you get vaccinated. Oops. At the upcoming event we're going to have next week on Thursday, we actually have a little thank you to all the folks who are getting vaccinated and boosted. And so come on down, get vaccinated, and we're going to give you a $50 gift card. It's just like cash. You can spend it anywhere except at a bar. So anywhere you want to spend your money, you can use this $50 gift card. And this is our way of showing our appreciation. It's actually the state of California's way of showing your appreciation, our appreciation for caring for our community and protecting ourselves and each other. So that's $50 if it's your first dose, or $50 if it's your booster dose. If it's your second dose, it doesn't matter. It's the same gift card. There's a lot of questions and concerns that people have about the vaccine. That's totally understandable. When you're getting a medication injected in your body, people have questions, they have concerns, so that's normal. The most frequent questions that we get, I'm going to go over here briefly. And then, of course, I'll be there next week in person and we can talk these over together and figure out, a plan that works for you. But the most common question is, will the vaccine make me sick? So if anyone here has already been vaccinated, you've probably had this experience. A lot of people do feel kind of bad after the vaccine. I felt really tired. I felt feverish. I felt sore, and it lasted about a day. And then it went away. Was I sick? No, I didn't have a virus. I didn't have an infection. I couldn't make anyone else sick. And it wasn't harming my body, but it did feel bad for about a day. So we're honest about that. That happens to a lot of people. The most common thing that happens is they have a sore arm where the injection happened. And for the great majority of people, any side effects of that nature are done in by 3 days. Mine was done in 1 day. Will the vaccine make me test positive for COVID-19, or will it give me COVID? No. It will not give you COVID. It will not make you test positive for COVID. It has no living COVID virus in it. It has material that tells your body how to fight the COVID virus. How well does it work? It still works very, very well. Even with Omicron, all the vaccines that are used in the US, which is Pfizer, Johnson & Johnson, or Moderna, they all work really well for preventing severe illness and keeping people out of the ICU. So I should have introduced myself at the beginning, which I didn't, so I'll just take that opportunity now. And Felix, I'm a nurse, and I have 2 jobs. One is at Highland Hospital, and one is here for Alameda County. And here through the county, I've been doing mostly vaccinations and COVID testing. But at Highland, all through the pandemic, my job involves looking at all the patients that are in the hospital every day. So I've been watching as people come in with COVID, and in each surge when we get a lot more people, and what happens. Well, before we had any vaccine, we had so many people in the ICU and dying. And I would see that every single day, and it was really horrifying to watch. But since the vaccine, we had a big surge, right? In December, January, Omicron, more people got COVID than have ever had it before. But there was a huge difference because very, very, very few people, even though so many people had it, very few people were going to the ICU. Very, very few people were dying. So the vaccine is extremely protective. It works, and it still works even with the new variants. So if you already had COVID, do you still need the vaccine? The answer is yes. It turns out, from what we know from the research that's out there, that the people who have had COVID and been vaccinated, they actually have the most protection against getting very sick. So if you've had COVID before, the vaccine is still going to give you additional protection. It's going to prevent you from dying, and it's going to keep you out of the ICU. It also offers some protection against infecting other people. So for all those reasons, it's still really important to get vaccinated, even if you've had COVID. And is it safe? So very understandable question. Like any medication that exists on Earth, there are occasional side effects that have caused harm, but they're very, very rare. We have tested the COVID vaccines that we use here in the US more widely than all the other vaccines that we all got as kids. So when you were a kid, if you got polio shot or if you got an MMR, all those vaccines, the COVID vaccines that we have were actually tested on a bigger group of people, and they've been now given to millions of people around the world. And we know that they are extremely safe. And even though there are some very, very rare side effects, those side effects are much, much more rare than the harms that can happen if you get COVID. So it's much, much, much safer to receive the vaccine than to risk getting COVID without the vaccine. And the last question is, will you have to pay for the vaccine? Absolutely not. If anybody tries to charge you for the vaccination, they're scamming you. Do not pay to get vaccinated. You can get it for free. Some specific questions I've heard related to our communities. So does it interact with hormone replacement therapy? No, it does not. If you're on hormones, or if you're on any kind of blockers, there's no interaction between the COVID vaccines and these medicines. It doesn't impact the efficacy of your hormone replacement therapy. It doesn't interact with those medicines at all. So you can safely take both without having any impact on the other. How about if you're on HIV meds? There's no interaction between HIV meds and any of the COVID vaccines that we use. It's completely safe to take both. And that's including PrEP. And if you are HIV positive, not everybody is immune compromised who's HIV positive, right? Like if your HIV is really well controlled, you're not necessarily immune compromised. But if you are immune compromised, it is especially important to get a COVID vaccine because you're at so much greater risk for getting very sick. So we especially recommend it to those who are HIV positive. And on the topic of immune suppressants or immune suppression or immune compromise, there's a lot of different people, many people who have some kind of immune compromise, right? And that can come from different causes. It can come from diseases such as HIV, but it could also come from medications people that take. And some of the most common reasons why somebody might take an immune suppressant medication is if they have an autoimmune illness, or if they're on chemotherapy of some kind, or if they have to take steroids like in high doses over a long time. All these things make our immune system less effective, less able to fight disease. So if that's your situation, talk to a nurse, talk to a pharmacist, talk to a doctor, but the recommendation is to, instead of getting 3 doses, the recommendation is to get 4 doses. So what do I mean? Let's say you started with Moderna or Pfizer. You got 2 doses at the beginning. That was your full vaccination. And then the recommendation was, okay, let's add a booster. So for folks who are immune suppressed, we're going to add 1 more vaccine. And there's a link at the bottom here on if you want to learn more about what the CDC recommends on vaccines. Oops, I missed it. But I think the easiest thing is to just Google CDC immunocompromised vaccine, and you can get some more details on those recommendations. But the long and the short of it is, if you're immune suppressed, get a 4th vaccine. It's not going to hurt you, it's going to help you. So that's it for my presentation. Maybe when we meet in person, we can talk more. I'd love to hear from folks who've already been vaccinated about what their experiences have been, what their questions were, what their concerns were. And I look forward to meeting you all in person on Thursday.